The concept of death is as complex as it is inevitable, woven from threads of biology, philosophy, and spirituality. At the heart of this complexity lies a profound question that has challenged thinkers and seekers for centuries: are clinical death and spiritual death one and the same, or do they represent fundamentally different realms of ending? The distinction between the two invites us into a deeper exploration, not only of what it means to cease living in a physical sense but also of what it means to die in a spiritual or existential dimension. In this interplay between the corporeal and the intangible, we confront the enigmatic boundary where science meets the soul. Clinical death is the term used in medicine to describe the cessation of the body's vital functions, heartbeat, breathing, and brain activity. It is a state that modern technology can sometimes reverse, thanks to resuscitation techniques and life support systems, challenging the very definition of death. In this biological framework, death is measurable, observable, and seemingly definitive. The moment when the heart stops beating or the brain ceases electrical activity marks a boundary beyond which the body can no longer sustain life. It is an event documented with precision and governed by protocols in hospitals and emergency rooms worldwide, yet, even within this clear-cut definition lies uncertainty. Advances in medical science have blurred the lines between life and death. Cases of near-death experiences and spontaneous recoveries challenge the notion that clinical death is an absolute endpoint. These occurrences hint at something more elusive, a dimension of existence that may persist beyond the body's failure. It is here that spiritual death enters the discourse, raising questions about the fate of consciousness, identity, and the essence of the self. Spiritual death, unlike its clinical counterpart, is not defined by a moment or a set of biological markers. Instead, it is often understood as a profound disconnection or transformation within the self, a death of the spirit, soul, or inner being. Many religious and philosophical traditions speak of spiritual death as a state of alienation, loss of meaning, or moral estrangement from one's true nature or from the divine. It can manifest while the body still lives, in experiences of profound despair, spiritual emptiness, or the sense of being cut off from life's deeper purpose. This distinction raises compelling questions. Can a person be clinically alive yet spiritually dead? Conversely, can spiritual vitality persist even after the body's functions have ceased? Various traditions offer differing perspectives. In some Eastern philosophies, the physical body is but a temporary vessel, and true death occurs only when the soul relinquishes attachment to the material world. Here, clinical death is a passage, not the end, while spiritual death would mean failure to transcend the cycle of suffering and rebirth. In Western thought, spiritual death has sometimes been linked to the idea of eternal separation from God or ultimate meaning, an existential void that may or may not coincide with physical death. The experiences reported by those who have crossed the threshold of clinical death, near-death experiencers, add layers of intrigue. Many recount moments of heightened consciousness, encounters with luminous beings, feelings of unconditional love, and a panoramic life review. These experiences suggest that consciousness may continue in some form, independent of the physical body, at least temporarily. If so, then clinical death may not equate with spiritual death but rather mark a transition phase in a broader existential journey. Furthermore, psychological and neuroscientific research reveals that the brain, even in states approaching death, can produce complex activity that correlates with consciousness and awareness. Yet, the origin of this awareness and its continuity after death remain unresolved mysteries. The gap between observable clinical phenomena and subjective spiritual experience persists, resisting full reconciliation. The tension between clinical and spiritual death also plays out in cultural attitudes toward dying and bereavement. Medical protocols often prioritize the preservation of life at all costs, sometimes at odds with patients' or families' spiritual beliefs about death's meaning and timing. The spiritual dimension calls for recognition of death as a sacred passage, a moment of transformation rather than mere biological cessation. Hospice care and palliative medicine attempt to bridge this gap by addressing the whole person, body, mind, and spirit, acknowledging that dying involves more than clinical parameters. Ultimately, the question of whether clinical death and spiritual death are the same touches on the very nature of existence and identity. It challenges us to reconsider our understanding of life, consciousness, and what it means to truly die. Are we simply bodies whose life ends when biological functions stop, or are we beings whose essence transcends the clinical markers of death? The answer remains elusive. Residing at the intersection of science, philosophy, and spirituality, urging humility and openness, in this profound mystery, clinical death stands as a threshold, a measurable event signaling the end of physical life, while spiritual death remains an inner journey, sometimes preceding, sometimes following the body's silence. They are not necessarily synonymous but are intertwined aspects of a single human experience that defies simple definition. To explore their relationship is to confront the deepest questions about who we are, what it means to live, and what, if anything, awaits beyond the final breath.